Plus 4 is owned by a fellow retro enthusiast and Commodore connector, and he has several different Commodore systems, but he asked me to replace this 4-pin power connector with the standard one that is used on the C64s and VIC-20s. And this is an operation that's been done before, and actually the rumors say that there are Plus 4 computers with the rounded power. I don't own any of them, so I don't know. I have 2 Plus 4 computers and both of them have this connector. But I'm going to take this apart and see if I can change this connector, and the machine has not been tested, so we are going to test it afterwards. From the outside it looks in rather good condition. It's not much yellowing, there are some stripes. It has obviously been stored not within a good container, because it's some stripes and stuff, but all in all it does not look too shabby. So this is made in England. It has the same power rating approximately as the Commodore 64, because it states here that you want 5 volt, 1.7 ampere and 9 volt AC 1 amps. But the original Commodore 64 brick has this stated out as 1 amps 9 volt AC. That's okay, but the 5 volt is actually just 1.5 ampere, but that should be good enough. For probably the maximum power draw on this is when you put in cartridges and some other equipment in this, so the bare machine itself won't draw that much power. It's a long time since I last pulled apart Plus 4 computer, but back in the day the most common fault on this was bad RAM chips, same as the 64s, and I remember just using some pliers, pulled the legs on everyone, and we just desoldered the pieces and changed all the memory chips. Sometimes we also used the piggyback method to see if the chip was bad, but if the chip had shorted and was hot, that was no use. It's a bit the worst for wear inside. You can see some corrosion here, but nothing bad. But you can see all the nickel here on this fuse and other stuff. It's getting kind of grey. That doesn't necessarily mean that it's anything wrong with it. I will disconnect the keyboard. I probably will want to clean that connector anyway. Just doing a manual inspection. There are some bodges here, some diodes that's connected over this chip, and there are some bodging here over these resistors. I can't see anything that's burned or damaged, or yeah, it looks rather okay. And it has some memory chips from USA, Micron technology memory chips. The most chips that I remember we just pulled everyone out is the MT memory chips that really come out not that great. I think it was due to the encapsulation on the chips was not totally airproof, so there got corrosion inside the chips. Yes, like so. And some of this has been manually soldered, that's for sure. But it's probably due to the heavier components being hand soldered and the rest of it being soldered by putting this in a bath back at the factory. And you can see here there are some really bad soldering. I will try to zoom in a bit. Yeah, you can see all the solder joints here. They're kind of this ball round shape where they should be like a volcano with slopes like so. And everything that's soldered to this earth plane here is bad soldering. I think almost every one of them. And we have the same in this corner, and this is the corner where you have the video connector. And here there also are some hand soldered stuff, and the flux has not been washed away after they did this manual, and that actually was not very common back in the day. You can see that this states revision D on the artwork. I will try to clean up some of this flux afterwards and look over some of these solder joints. Yeah, I still have not found my desoldering gun. That's actually kind of a worry, but I do wonder if someone has borrowed it and not put it back. But this we will just desolder anyway with solder wick. You remember last time I told you about the importance of using good desoldering wick with flux? I got some comments and some personal messages, and some friends that learned soldering and should know better years ago, they actually called me and said that, it's that why this is going so bad. We thought that we had lost the skills. Back in school we always used soldering wick with this rosin kind of flux, so they didn't know that this was missing when they bought this cheap stuff from China. You can actually see here how good this really sucks up the solder. It's being completely stiff, and you can see that it's an even match on both sides. So it's pushing this straight through. I think this should be okay, about okay. Adrian's Digital Basement actually did a video about this. I don't know remember when, but it might be a couple of years back, where we actually changed a connector on a plus 4. Like that. And this is also a DIN connector in the same series as the other. This is also a DIN connector, and the connectors that you use for mice, keyboard and SVOS and other stuff that has this round or square type of connection is actually the same series of connectors, and they all share some inheritance between the different sockets. So although this one is totally plastic and it's square and it has only 4 pins, the numbering of the pins and the placement on the PCB share some properties. So we will now just find a DIN socket that fits the power supply of the Commodore 64, and as you can see it also uses 4 pins. Yeah, and here you can see the different connectors that's used in the Commodore 64. I have quite some of these laying around. This is the ones for the power control, this is for the video, and this is for the serial bus. And there actually are some differences in these plugs that should make them very difficult to plug into something that they're not meant to plug in. The most common fault with the Commodore 64 is that actually people was putting the power into the serial bus connector. You can actually see here, this is the power connector, and this is the connector that meant for the serial bus. And you can see they are very different when you look at them like this. And Commodore hoped when they designed this that these pins here should be placed so that it was possible to put them in here but not in here. But one of the most common faults I had back in the day when Commodore 64s came from repair, it was people who had tried to connect the power on the connectors in the back because it looked much more tidy than it did with had it sticking out from the side. And this is the connector that it's meant to be pushed into, and this is a new connector, so it's rather stiff, but it's possible to get this in there. It will get a bit looser over time. And this is the connector for the serial bus, where you connect your floppy drives and printers and stuff. And people have told me numerous times that this is not possible, so I must be joking. But I know it's hard. I know you have to push a bit more. But like so. The power connector actually goes into this connector. So that's what happened back in the day. The Commodore 64s come back and they was completely dead. Most often this actually was the fault that had occurred. On this connector it's a bit more difficult to get it in. This is the connector for the video, but it is possible to get it into this too, and I know because I've seen it, but I won't push that now because that actually might break one of the legs on the power supply. But the task at hand today was to actually replace this with this. And on the bottom here you can see there are some slight differences. We have one extra pin here, one extra pin here, and you have one extra here. And these two here that actually is connected to the ground around here, they are placed all the way in front here on this one. But if you see on the PCB, you actually have the holes here to connect it with this placement on the ground plane, so that will be totally okay. So what we need to do here is just solder this in, because the other pins here, they have made a hole for them. Even the center pin have a ready-made hole. So this connector will fit right in, and the ones that is not in use won't bother us at all. This is the AC line, and this one and this one, this and this is the plus 5 volt line. And what this does, it connects this to this, and it connects all these three together, and it connects the AC straight to this and this. So it won't be any bother at all to just put this straight in here. And all the holes are completely opened from our excellent desoldering. So it will just go like that. And this is soldered with lead, so it will melt very easily on this. This connector is all plastic, so let's not heat it too much. Yeah, I have to put on my glasses to inspect that one. But this will totally do. So there you have it, one power connector changed, and I think we can just take this and put it together. Yeah, we should do the cleaning on the back side that we agreed upon. So I will go get some isopropanol, and we will wash this backside from all the old flux. This old flux that's been here for 30 years, it will struggle a bit to come off, but it will make it much easier to see if the soldering is good underneath. And this flux was on all the manual soldering, and quite honest here, I think the manual soldering is a bit more prone to fail and bad soldering than the machine soldering that was done in a thin bath. Isopropanol will evaporate quite easily, but this gunk that you have washed away, I've seen many leave it on the surface of the print. They just dilute it by taking on isopropanol and don't rinse it afterwards. As you can see here, it's quite the extensive amount, and this is not a totally good clean. I will just clean off the most of it, and I will leave it to the owner of this computer to take it apart and clean it out if he wants that later. Some of the solder joints that looked quite bad actually cleaned up rather nice, and doesn't look too bad now. But we will give this a short test. As this board has not been tested, it's very easy just to do a quick test, and if there are some more that needs to be done with this computer, I have to ask the owner to what extent we should pursue to fix this. But I will need to connect up a monitor, and I will need to clean up the desk a bit. So I will get back when that's done. Yeah, this is not the best setup to see if things are working. I will kind of be sitting in the way of the monitor, but I will try to turn this on now and see what happens. There the monitor is on and no picture. No picture at all, just a black screen, and we connected the same cable as I used on the Commodore 64. I actually have to check that this gives composite video output on the same pin as the Commodore 64, but I think it does. I'm just going to take a quick measurement here to see that we have the 5 volt, and that we do. And let me also check for the AC voltage. Yeah, I measured that here on the user port. The pads beneath this cut here, and 10.8 volt AC. So the power modification works okay. That's totally fine. The power switch works, the fuse works, the power regulator works. So it comes down to some other faults, and there are some chips here that are put in sockets, most notably the CPU, and the ROM chips here are put in sockets, and this is the PLA chip. It's also in a socket. All the memory chips are soldered. I don't have any diagnostics or other stuff for the Plus 4, but I do have some service leaflet. I don't have the complete manual from back in the day, because we didn't sell many of these, and all of them that come back to us with faults actually had memory faults. So back in the day, this was a machine that we did not do much other service than cutting out the RAM chips and soldering new ones. But we will do some basic troubleshooting on this computer. The first thing I will do is I will actually look up on the internet to see if the composite video is on the same pin as on the Commodore 64. I see here on my phone that they have the same pinout on the video signal, but the audio is actually changed, as we can see here, and I don't think it will matter much, because the 2 and 4 is used to get video out, and audio in is the 5 pin instead of audio out, so that won't be a problem. So this machine should have colored up with something if it was working. I might have to go and grab some pieces. I do think I have a working Plus 4 that I got back from Tommy over at Arctic Retro. He was doing some videos on Plus 4s, and I think he did a repair with replacing this with the 6510 CPU. And the most common fault with this machine is a defect CPU. If the TED chip is not working, there is no modern replacement for that. And I also have here a Commodore 16 that actually is said to have the same issue, that it only gives out a black picture. So I don't think it will be any reason to just take out the chips from this one and check. So I have to go and hunt for my good Plus 4. So that will be part 2 of this video. We will continue doing some fault finding on this one. The CPU is actually getting quite hot. The PLA is getting somewhat hot, but these ROM chips are also getting, yeah, a bit, not so much this one, but this one has got some heat. So I just have to do some basic troubleshooting on this one, but that will be much easier if I have some chip to swap with. I will also go and browse through the service manual for this to see if there are some obvious faults. I also have the possibility to take out the scope and do some probing on the signals, but for that I really need to have this together with the service information, because although I know most of the timings and signals on a Commodore 64 by hand, I don't know it on this system. So that's it for this episode. Part 2 of this will be checking some more faults and see if we can get this system working. If we have to order parts and have to do some more repairs, that will be part 3. Please hit subscribe if you want to be notified while we post new videos, So long and see you in the next one.